Hello and welcome back to another video tutorial here at Geekatplay Studios. My name is Gary Miller. Today we're going to pretty much incorporate all the software tools that I have used in my previous tutorials, and we're going to incorporate it all into one simple little project that will yield us pretty satisfactory results, and that is animating a fan. And here is the animation that I worked on earlier today. And this exact same look and this same thing that you see is what we're going to create here in View, Hexagon, and Photoshop. So let's get started creating just a basic building. Now, granted, this is devoted to animation, and if you're not interested in animating, don't tune out, because there are going to be some things in here that, especially with the modeling and the texturing that we're going to be doing in Photoshop, that you might benefit from greatly in other projects, whether or not they involve animation at all. So this is going to roughly be our building. Create a cube here for a window. Come down here to lay on. I'm going to select one of these faces. Lay it on the front of my building. Hit validate. And move it up a little bit. And I'm just going to Boolean cut this into my wall here, or my building. And now what I want to do is select this front face. I'm going to pull it out just a little bit. Now I'm going to click on extract. And I want to control D and duplicate that. I'm going to move that backwards, just like that. And I'm just going to give this a name. I'm going to call it fan, because that's going to be our spinning fan. I'm going to select this one here. Select the face. I'm going to come up here to sweep surface tool. What I want to do is pretty much do an inner extrude here. So I'm just going to dial in an inner radius about like that. I'm going to click. Now I'm going to hit my space bar because I want to extrude inwards. And that should be good. I'm going to click OK, validate that. I'm going to select that front face again, and I'm going to click on extract. Now I'm going to call that grill, or you can call it vent, or whatever you like. This object here is going to be the frame for our ventilation hole, whatever. So frame. And this is our wall. Let me come down here to a wireframe view and check the offset of our fan. That's a good distance. Doesn't need to be too far away or up close. Okay, I'm going to come over here to a split screen, come over here to UV and paint. With my fan selected, I'm going to click on planar projection, and this white line that you see is the UV map for our fan, and that's what I want. I want it to come all the way to the far edges of this UV map. Now I'm going to come down here to this little camera icon. I'm going to click on that, and I'm going to call this fan, because I want to save this UV map and do some work on it when we get into Photoshop. Yes, I'll replace it. Alright, now that that's done, I'm going to come down here to the grill, and I'm going to click on planar projection, and it's going to give me the exact same effect as for the fan, which is fine. And I'm going to click on my camera, and I'm going to save it, call this grill. Now I'm going to export my model to my desktop, and I will call it fan animation model. That will be fine. And we are done here in Hexagon. Move on into Photoshop. So here in Photoshop, I'm just going to take my fan and just drag it right into my screen here. Create a new layer above that, and I'll Alt Delete to fill that in with my foreground color, which is currently set to white. And I'm going to create a new layer above that. Now I need to create the spinning fan blades. Now you're probably thinking, wait a minute, we are going to create a 3D model, and the objects that we created that represent the grill and the fan blade, those were just flat planes. How are we going to get, how are we going to create a grill out of a solid flat plane, and how we're going to create a spinning fan blade out of a solid flat plane? And the answer is we're going to create them by using alpha images. And if you're not familiar with alpha images or how they work and why they work, I would encourage you to go over to Geekatplay, because I created a tutorial there which explains what they are all about. And let me see if I can find that. There we are. Under the Area 51 tab, I created a tutorial about alpha images, how and why they work, and I go into I go into detail explaining how they work. Here I don't go into any detail, so I would encourage you to watch that tutorial, get a firm understanding on the process of alpha images. Then you will get a greater understanding on how we're faking three-dimensionality by using this 2D texture map. Okay, now we need to create that fan blade. So I'm going to come down here to my pin tool, select my pin tool. I want to make sure up here I am on paths, and my pin tool is selected. So I'm just going to, somewhere in the center of my document, I'm just going to click and come straight up, and then over to the left a little bit. I'm going to click again, over to the left a little bit, click again, and I'm going to hold down, because now I get some Bezier curve action. And I'm just going to create what looks to be a fan blade. Now I'm going to come straight across, click again, hold down, and then stretch this out to be a fan blade. Don't worry if it's not perfect. We're going to go back and do some tweaking. Then I'm come back here to my original starting point, click, and it closes all that off. Now what I need to do is I need to create some guides. So if you do not have your rulers displayed, come up here to View and click on Rulers. You want to have this displayed here so you can create these visual guides. I want to create a couple horizontal and one vertical. Now come down here to my Direct Selection tool. Now this is the center point down here at the bottom, so I want to have that right over my guidelines. I'm going to select both of these, and I'm going to bring them down onto this line and center them. Now you notice this curve is not symmetrical, so what I'm going to do is come back up here to my Move tool, and I'm going to take this guide and I'm going to move it, say, right here. Now come back to my Direct Selection tool, and I'm going to bring this control handle all the way up to the top of the line, because that's where this one is, and both of them are uniform. So now I'm just going to take this guide and I'm going to move it down here, come back to Direct Selection. Now let's click on this one and see where the control handle for this one is, and let's bring that in. So now we have a nice symmetrical fan blade. So I'm going to right click in there, and I want to make a selection out of that shape, out of that path that we created. Now it's going to ask us, do I want to feather the radius? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to give a 2-pixel feathering to this radius, and I'll show you why once we fill it in with black. I'm going to Alt-D to fill it in with black, and now I'm going to Control-D to deselect, come up here to View, and I'm going to clear my visual guides. Now this is why I wanted to feather the radius of this, because it gives me a blurred outline of my fan. if you're familiar or not familiar with the animation options that are available in View, one of the things you can do is you can add blurring to your animation so that the objects that are moving and that are animated are blurred to increase the effects, the visual effects of the animation process. Well, if my object is already blurred, then it will increase that convincing visual effect even more. And you can't blur a 3D model if I were to have created this fan blade in Hexagon. So that's why I wanted to do that here in Photoshop, as well as just doing something totally different and unique approach to creating your typical model, at least in the tutorials I've created in the past. Okay, I'm going to move this up here to the top. I'm going to grab that layer, drag it down here, and create a new layer from it. I'm going to come over here to Edit, come down here to Transform, and I'm going to flip vertical. I'm going to hold down Shift and press my arrow keys and just move it down to the bottom of this top fan blade so that the two are joined together. I'm going to select both those layers. Again, I'm going to duplicate them, hold down Shift, and rotate this 90 degrees. Click my check mark to validate that. I'm going to select all of them, and this little folder icon down here, that's to create a new group. I'm going to select all these layers, and I'm just going to drag them over that folder icon, which will create a group out of all of them. I'm going to Control A to select all of that layer, and I'm just going to center them horizontally and vertically, because this has to be absolutely dead center in the middle of my image, because this this whole image, including the white, which we're going to invert the colors later on, but this whole thing will be animated. So if my fan blade is off to the side, then we're going to have a nice wobbling effect rather than a nice spinning fan blade. It'll still spin, but the center of it will be off and the thing will wobble rather than spin smoothly. So that's why this has to be centered in the middle of my image. Now, I'm not going to get into adding a gradient so that this actually looks like a fan blade. I'm just not going to worry about that because we're going to apply a texture to it when we get into View. So I like that. That is my fan blade. So I'm going to come down here and save this, save as, make it a JPEG, and we'll call it fan blade. Click OK. And now I'm going to close this out because we are finished. Come up here to create a new document. And I want to select inches. And I want this document to be 2 inches by 2 inches. And I'll give it 200 DPI. And click OK. I'm going to create a new layer. I'm going to come up here to my elliptical marquee tool. And I'm going to hold down Shift because that will constrain this tool to give me a perfect circle. Otherwise I would get this ellipse. So I'm going to create a perfect circle, about like this, that size inside of this image. And with black as my foreground color now, I'm going to Control D and fill that in with black. I'm going to Control A to select that whole layer, which only consists of that dot. And I'm going to center this in my image. Control D to deselect that. Now what I want to do is create a pattern here, and that pattern will be used as an alpha map for the grill or the vent covering that goes over that frame in our 3D model. So I'm going to hold down Alt, and notice how my cursor changes when I hold down Alt. It gives me a kind of one arrow that overlaps another. Now I can duplicate this object, this circle that I've created. So now that I've duplicated it, what I want to do is I want to move the center here of it right up here in the top of the corner, and these centering marks on the sides and on the top here, I want them to be here. Let me see, this one, I'm sorry, and this one I want to be on the edges, because this whole circle here I want to be centered right up here in the top corner of my image. So I'm just going to move it up, and you can hold down shift and it'll snap into place. And now my little center little markers here are right on the edge, and it's centered right there at the top corner. So I'm going to hold down shift, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. Hold down shift, I'm sorry, alt is what duplicates, and hold down shift now and move it right into place. Alt to move it over here, release, hold down shift, and move this into place so that it is centered. Then let me check all of them, make sure they're all centered. Yes, yes. Alright, that's good. I'm going to turn off my background layer so that only these black dots are visible, because this is the pattern that I want to define. I don't want to define my white background as part of my pattern, only these black circles. So that's why I turned off the background layer. So with all these black circles visible, I'm going to come up here to edit, define pattern, and up here you can type in whatever name you want and then click OK. I'm going to close this out because we are done with this. Now for our grill, and there's my grill. I'm just going to drag it right into Photoshop, pop it right on top, create a new layer. I'm going to fill this with white by hitting Alt Delete, and over here right where my cursor is, I'm going to double click because this will bring up my layer styles. I'm going to come over here to Pattern Overlay, and I'm going to click on Pattern Overlay. Clicking this little arrow here, it brings up the patterns that are available to me. Now there are more. If you click on this little arrow here, there's a whole lot more. But of the ones that are immediately loaded, these are the ones that come up. And if I come all the way down, here is the pattern that I last created, which is this grill pattern. This is going to be the vent covering, or the grill that goes over our fan. And right now the scale of that is a little large. So I'm going to bring the scale down, probably like that. Now one thing that's nice about making our alpha map by using a layer style is that rather than create one circle, duplicate it, move it over, create another circle, duplicate it, move that over, and rather than create a pattern manually, look at by just creating the pattern as a pattern and then using it in a layer style. Look at the immediate look at the flexibility and the power I have of changing its scale, and put your cursor in here, hold down left click and move around. You can move the pattern around anywhere you want it. So that's a great feature when you want to create something like an alpha map, and a powerful feature by using in layer styles rather than having to create it all manually. Well, I like that. Maybe a few fewer holes. Now here's a benefit, or here's something to consider. If you're going to create an animation like the one I displayed at the beginning with a volumetric light coming through, if you're familiar with volumetric lights, the little light rays the visible light rays will be shining through these holes. The more that you have shining through these holes, the longer it will take to render. Now that's not a big deal if you're only rendering one frame, but if you've got like a 10-second animation, which is what the one I showed you was, that had over I think it was 151 frames, something like that, and it took 5 hours because I had a lot of holes. So the fewer holes you have, the fewer of those light beams you will have coming through, and the quicker overall it will render. but I'll just go with this. That's fine. So I'm going to save this, save as JPEG, and we'll call it grill covering. And that is it for this tutorial. We're going to bring all these elements into view and create a very simple animation, but a very good looking animation from all of this. So hope to see you on the next one. So thanks for watching here at Geekatplay Studios. My name is Gary Miller. Have a good day.